reason why you all are here is you've seen this before. You've been successful for many, many years and would love your thoughts.
I think it's a general feeling of panic for everything, for the economy, for our country, because we don't know what's behind this per se.
Right.
I've done reading on what causes inflation. I keep hearing supply chain issues, and I'm like, I'm in this and I'm not sure where the supply chain issues are actually coming from, because we're out there, I see the work, but I don't see the rates. Mm-hmm. Why don't I see the rates?
Right. Kevin, do you think volumes are down? Like, what are your thoughts about?
From what I do, I don't see volume down at all. I see rates, like Petal said, rates are down. Who's really pushing the rates down? I think that needs to be answered. I mean, it's an easy comment to blame a broker. It's not the broker, you know. I mean, that's just a easy fix, easy to say, you know. There's something, like you were saying, something behind the scenes is going on to where, you know, we're facing the highest fuel we've ever seen in trucking at all. And the rates are just...
It's amazing.
I mean...
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, but I think to understand a little bit of it is, you go back a few years ago when the oil, the energy, you know, there was, if you ever made it out to Odessa, Texas, Midland, Texas, you know, all out there, just campgrounds of truck drivers that were out there working the oil fields, thousands of them. Well, they shut that down. Well, now you have them thousands of guys who have trucks. They had to get back out here in the market. And maybe that's got a lot to do with it. A lot of companies are going out of business. So you would think it would kind of stabilize a little bit. But we just come out of Memorial Day. And if you watch the rates during Memorial Day, they shot the rates up really high during the holiday. So we got to find out where the consistency is, or inconsistency, I should say, in the market art. You know, everybody can speculate.
Right.
Speculate is easy.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, speaking of that speculation, Jorie, you founded the transportation and logistics room in Clubhouse. So if anybody knows what people are talking about and what that conversation looks like, what is the speculation in the rooms? Like, what are drivers saying? Why are the rates so low right now?
Well, I'll say, just generally speaking, truckers are thinking, hey, we were in the golden age of trucking. Everybody jumped into the industry to take advantage of those high rates. And now they're saying maybe there are too many new entrants. You know, so the box truck market is pretty saturated. So it's a matter of brokers allowing truckers to underbid one another. So that's driving prices down for these, you know, in the spot market for, box trucks. And I would imagine shippers having to pay a premium for the last year and a half during this golden age. They're trying to recoup some of those margins that they were having to give up. So I would say that's what I've been hearing the most.
How in the world can rates be coming down? When you've got fuel,
sense.
and why are drivers not asking for this additional fuel charge? Is it just that if, Petal, if you ask for, an added fuel surcharge, they're just like, no, because they know they're going to find a driver that will take it?
Pretty much, yeah. It seems like the people who are moving this freight, the ones that are what the country depends on, are the people with the least power. Mm-hmm. It really does. I can ask all day long, but they're not going to negotiate with me if they know that they can book that load with somebody else for less than what I'm asking. And I don't think, and there are people out there that ask, if you go, I've been on like JB Hunt's load board where you can put in a bid and you can see what the other people have bid. And there are people that ask some outrageous prices, to be totally honest. And I go within the margins of what it's supposed to be. And I'll see people just, they'll come back with an offer. No, I cannot move my truck for that. Mm-hmm. So I'm like everybody else. I'm at a loss.
Right.
But I feel like we have no power.
And we don't. And here's a prime example. I'm not going to use the broker's name just out of respect for them. I was the number one carrier they called on a certain lane. It was 400-mile lane, and I was getting $12.50 every trip. $12.50 when fuel was $1.80 to $2.50 a gallon. Mm-hmm. When they quit calling, like, we ain't got nothing this week. We don't have nothing this week. And so I reached out to my contact, like, okay, what do I have to do to get back to be the number one carrier? And they told me that lane now, somebody took it for $9.50.
With fuel, what it is?
With fuel like it is right now. And that's what we're competing against.
Yeah.
Not that, you can't sit here and I'll never beat up brokers. I mean, that's just an easy thing to say. But they've got to make money, just like we got to make money. But I hear people say, well, you need to be hauling for $6 a mile right now. You're not going to find it. I mean, we might need to be.
Right.
Good luck finding that, but.
What I would say to that is if everybody came together, you know what I mean, and there was some type of general, we're not going to take rates that are in the basement that they currently are, right. Maybe we would get some traction. Maybe we would have that power. But me as a dispatch service, I have to talk like realistically to brokers, like how can somebody be profitable, stay in business, right. Running this lane with the rates that you're talking about? Absolutely. It's not possible, especially not with fuel being what it is.
Well, and that takes us to the conversation of, like, if you've been in this industry for years, which all of you have, we've seen some tough years before. They know what will happen. If we're, oversaturated and there's too much capacity, the rates go down, people will go out of business. And then, there'll be a period there where it's like looking very dismal. And then all of a sudden there's not enough carriers to take the freight and loads go back up. So it's very, very cyclical. And it leads me to ask, like, Kevin, when you think back to the 30 years that you've been in trucking, can you think to one of, the worst years that you maybe have had? And then does this look like that? And is it going to prepare you for what's to come right now?
What we're seeing now looks worse than the other recession we had.
You think so?
Fuel, yeah, because your rates kind of stay the same. And what you said hits true. A lot of new people come in when we was making good money, and a lot of people went out and bought a truck, and they just run however they wanted and made money. Well, the same people are out here and they don't have a clue. Now they're having to call a broker or, their contact. Hey, I'll haul it for anything. I got a truck payment to make. I got fuel. Yeah. They don't realize they're not making money. Right. They might be getting paid every day, or they might, at the end of the week, they bought their fuel and they made their truck payment. But at the end of the month, they're sitting there going, I haven't made the money.
And it's not just about trucking, it's everything. Right. I mean, is this the end result from COVID? What is this? Because like you said, can't get trucks, right? We can't get trucks, can't get parts. Right. Diesel prices are high, right? Rates are low. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have a truck and you can't get a part to fix your truck, right. What happens to that truck payment, that insurance payment, your mortgage payment? Right. These are unprecedented times. Where are we going from here, and where is it coming from? I used to manage a diesel repair shop, and from there we merged with a sister company, but we were in separate buildings. So we merged with a trucking company. So I ran the repair side, and the dispatchers were kind of behind me. And so I kind of got the feel for that. And they're like, oh, Petal, come sit with us, learn dispatching. I'm like, I don't have time to do that. And when I did have time, I'd go sit with the guys, and they're like, oh, you're really good at this. I'm like, whatever. And so as my tenure ended with the repair shop, I said, I'm going to start a dispatch company.
Okay.
And I went home and did my little research, which was not very much, but I set up a dispatch company. But I also, when I did it, I had people telling me, oh, you need to do this and that. I said, okay. So while I set up the dispatch company, I got motor carrier authority and broker authority, both of which you do not need to do dispatching.
Right.
You know, Burnette, how are you feeling about what's to come in the coming months?
Well, in my professional opinion, I just think that the direction is going to have to come to a burst, and you just have to align yourself, or we've aligned ourselves to just weather the storm. Mm-hmm. And weathering the storm is being consistent, building relationships, making sure that you stay in these brokers' wheelhouses. Because when you're a new carrier going to a new broker, most of the time you're not going to get premium rate. But if you stay consistent, as I've done, they know my price tag. So they kind of say, okay, well, his service is there, give him what he wants, and let that freight be moved. And that's kind of been the success right now. And, you know, as far as being afraid of what the market is gonna, I'm not that much. I'm watching fuel. I got my guys' fuel cards capped at 100 gallons a day. So it kind of lets me keep a budget, if you will. So they don't go, I'll never get a fuel bill that's so out of range that I didn't make sure we made enough money on the freight volume not to cover that bill. So I kind of know my numbers already. When I see a card that's been swiped, I know how much fuel they put in the truck. I know where that bill should, typically be. And the other part that we've done is stayed in the same lanes. Georgia, Florida, that I'm not going anywhere else. That's pretty much Georgia, Florida, and staying local to Atlanta and just running dedicated freight.
Petal, you mentioned that too, like staying local. And is that a tip or trick to right now in understanding your numbers and understanding what you need to, cover your costs and pay your drivers and, keep is that part of it?
I don't think so. I think wherever you go, you need to understand your numbers. Right. That's just business 101. Right. If the numbers don't make sense, then you can't run it. And I think that's where a lot of people fail because they just don't look at the numbers. They look at the dollar sign for that load, which, back in the day, that was great, because you saw big dollars, but now you're not seeing big dollars. So it's even more important now that you have to understand your numbers. We have actually considered, we have a truck that is not on the road right now. It's a day cab we bought like a year ago and are now doing something with it. But I said that is a good way to keep fuel costs down and still make a good profit because we're staying local and we're not burning a lot of fuel. Right. Don't have to worry about a whole lot of things that you worry about over the road. But at the end of the day, we're still an over the road company. There's still a great need for that, and somebody's got to fill it. So but the idea is diversify what you have. That's right. Right. So if you have 10 trucks, make sure some of those trucks are doing, dedicated, local, you have to diversify to stay relevant in this game. And like you used a terminology that I've used, weather the storm.
A lot of people, especially, they look at the big number. They don't do the math on the actual rate per mile, which we all know that's really what you need to be looking at because you would rather run a shorter distance for more money and you're having less fuel costs than traveling all the way from New York to California when you think, $7,000, but how much did you just spend in fuel for that load? Your driver took him the whole week. So I think it's just the same thing, condensing a lane and running a consistent lane. In that way, going into like what Burnette said, that's how you start building the relationships. Because if you do a load for 2 weeks for the same broker, you get lucky to get on the load board and get that load. And you do it for 2 weeks, then you can kind of start talking to them and negotiating. Hey, I seen you had this load up here every single week. We've done it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Is there somehow this can, we can work together on this? We've been getting this much. We can take it down a little bit. But we need this lane. So yeah, that's what consistently running the same lane, I think.
Well, since I started in the business, I always have ran short distance. Right. And in one of my interviews with you, Grace, my terminology is flipping bills. So what that means is I keep my drivers on a short leash. If anything's over 7 hours, we're not running it. because I need to put another freight bill in their hand that morning. You know, so when they get unloaded in the AM, by afternoon, they're loaded coming back home. And when you start doing that, you're able to turn more volume. I have a number in my head. My trucks have to do $1,000 a day. So if we're not doing that, then, you know, the numbers get a little tight. But we stay so close, maybe 450 miles, maybe is the furthest we go. But, you know, I have my numbers. And like everybody at the tape have said, you have to know your numbers. With fuel costs now, 100 gallons is about $600. So for me to make sure, you know, my number for my guys to go to Florida is $500. So if I'm gonna take a load to go to Florida, that load has to pay a minimum $1,500, $1,600, and it can't go below Central Florida. So that number works for me. I still get a nice profit. My driver is happy. Fuel, got to get the fuel costs in there, so that all that stuff works. But then when you take a load that's paying $800 going that same distance, the numbers are not going to work for you. So everybody has to be smart right now. You know, the shorter lanes, shorter distances are working for us. But some guys just get tunnel vision and they want to think that big number. Oh, I went to wherever for $2,000. But as she said, how much fuel did you use to get that far? I'm a native, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Went into the military at the age of 18. Kind of got my love and passion behind trucks from the military. I was a driver trainer, if you will, in the military. Came out, took a break in service, didn't know what I was gonna do. So I went and got my CDL with one of the local gaining transportation program. Didn't like what they were doing because I was still tied to the military. I couldn't go out and work much because they was letting me shuttle trailers for their road drivers. So when I got my paycheck, I didn't like it. So I went back in the military, did 6 more years, came out with a total of 11 years. But just to fast forward a little bit to get to where I'm at today, as far as the trucking is concerned, I was an inside sales manager for 10 years, selling abrasive supplies and equipment, sandblasting things. And I had one of my best friends came to my office one day and say, "Hey, you look real comfortable behind that desk, but I drive trucks and I work for a temp service and I make $1,000 a week." And I'm like, "No way, you can't make $1,000 a week as a temp driving trucks." So he went out to his car, came back in with his check stub, showed it to me. Well, that was August. October, I had a tractor trailer parked in my front yard. So
right now in this market, how do you make sure if you're investing in someone, you know, for instance, yourself with the safety and compliance, but whether it's insurance or, you know, accounting assistance or education around dispatching or education around brokerage or whatever that may look like, like, how do you know whether or not that's the right investment for you or that this is the time to cut that type of...
I would say if you're doing anything in this industry, whether it be talking to different people about your operations, insurance, factoring, whatever the case might be, you need to talk to multiple different people. People that actually work with them and not just, you know of them. And also look at their reviews. Look at the good reviews and the bad reviews. My husband is a huge reviews person. How many do they have and how many good ones do they have? So that's for sure on that side. You have to talk to people. You have to compare the cost right now. That's really, really important. But also, as far as compliance goes, everything you need to know is online. Like, yes, I do break it down to people based on what I've been through as well, but I tell people all the time, I give them free resources where they can go look for this information. Anything that could happen, you could submit your ELD logs to FMCSA website and they will tell you if you have any possible violations on there. That's stuff that people don't look at because they want to take the short route. When it comes to the courses and programs and get into the industry and talking to people, like, you have to really do your research and not just be so, I guess, I don't want to use this word, but so like big-eyed based on what you see online. Like, work with people who are doing this on a daily basis, who are stressed out behind compliance and all their clients and whose phone is ringing off the hook. Work with people who do this on an everyday basis. They don't just do everything online to make stuff look good. Like, people, if they want to teach you how to have trucks. How many trucks you got, Burnette?
We have 7. I got a deal on the table for number 8.
How long you been in the industry?
We're going into 6 years.
Call him. He's got some good information.